80s electro pop band sell a bike for a lot of money. What's next for Chris Froome? And Trek release a new bike, but who's it for? Hey folks, welcome to the Ride and Thrive podcast with me, your host, Dave Shields. And we've got our weekly round of news of what's going on in the cycling world this week. Now, I'm going to start off with a couple of updates from last week. So we're gonna start with the Israel Premier Tech saga. Now, if you remember, they were going down like rats were leaving a sinking ship, and metaphorically speaking, more rats have been leaving this week in the form of their bike sponsor, which is Factor. So they've pulled out. So effectively, that leaves the team nameless, sponsorless, and bikeless. However, it's not all bad news. So we've had a few rumblings about what's the future for this team, and it is looking fairly rosy, I'll have to admit. So let's get this right. The new sponsor is going to be NSN Cycling, which it stands for Never Say Never, and it is a sports entertainment company. So this is founded by a footballer, or co-founded by an ex-footballer, Iniesta, who did play for Barcelona. He's quite a big name in the world of football. So it's his company, and they've backed the cycling team. So yeah, so it's got a sponsor. That's great. It's mooted that maybe Scott are going to take on board the providing the bikes for the team, and they are looking for another team to sponsor after they pulled out of the deal with Q36.5, like I reported last week. Now the new company is Swiss-based, or say Swiss-based. The company is Swiss-based. The team is going to be based in Spain, so a bit of a multinational affair, but moving far away from the Israel name that they had previously. And it's also rumoured, but this hasn't been confirmed yet, that Biniam Girmay, who's a prestigious sprinter, is currently in a contractual dispute with his team, Intermarché Wanty, and it's looking like he might be going to this team as a big name, sort of first signing. So that'll be quite good. Now, Chris Froome, I mentioned earlier in the introduction. I'm going to come on to him later. He is currently coming to the end of his contract with the team anyway. So I'm going to leave that and see where he's at a bit later on. Okay, so fairly good news for that team. We wish them well moving forward, and we'll look out for them in 2026. It's not all been confirmed yet. They've still got to dot the I's and cross the T's by the certain date in December. So we'll see if they make the cut and get to the start line next year. It would be good to see. And the other update, more of a bit of a correction, and it was pointed out by one of my listeners, watchers, left a comment, basically pointing out that about the Pinarello Q36.5 partnership, and I said it was the influence of Tom Pidcock coming to Q36.5 with Pinarello and bringing them on board. And it turns out that Pinarello and Q36.5 are owned by the same company. And it is a billionaire, a South African billionaire called Ivan Glasberg, who co-owns the company. So, so it wasn't really that big a deal of those two guys coming together, the two brands coming together. It probably made sense, seeing as though they were owned by the same parent company. So a little update on that one, but still, exciting to see. And I'm sure that Tom Pidcock was happy to be back on Pinarello with the team. So we'll watch out for those still in 2026. Okay, so on to this week's news then. Chris Froome. Now, he is out. He's gone a bit quiet. He's had a couple of crashes. He had a really bad crash in 2019, and he's never really been the same since. He's never hit the heights as what he did with Sky and Ineos. And he was with Israel Premier Tech. He had another crash, and he's been in and out of sorts, I think. And I think he's just coming to the end of his time. Now, he wants to keep riding, but I don't know if his body's going to let him. Now, he has said in the past that he wants to set up an academy to promote cycling in his native Africa. And, you know, he could go on to do that. I mean, there's many things that that he could go on to do. I'm not sure if there's many teams that would give him a contract to carry on racing. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. So I'll update you if I hear anything else. But until now, he's out of contract and he's out of a job, basically. So he's going to have to do something to bring in the pennies. Okay, so the other story this week, 80s electro pop group. I used to love these when I was growing up. I say 80s, they were out around in the 70s, and they are Kraftwerk, and they had a big song called "The Model" back in the day. They also had a song called "Autobahn." They were like four guys who would just like play. They were pioneers of the electro pop synth kind of vibe going on. And they, you know, I think they were influencing a lot of people who came up, you know, into the late 70s and 80s, you know, Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark and Gary Newman and all that. So anyway, it turns out they were quite big into cycling, and they had a big hit called Tour de France, and they had a video out for that hit. And in the video, they were riding bikes. Now, one of the band members who passed away, his name was Florian Schneider. He owned one of these bikes, and it went up for auction last week. And it was, let's get this right, a silver Speedwell titanium bike. And it looked very retro. It looked actually pretty cool, to be honest. And it went up for auction, and it sold for $57,600. Which was way beyond the price that they thought that they thought it was going to fetch. Now, they sold a load of other stuff as well. They had a load of other bikes that went up for sale, and all sorts of memorabilia. So so that was I just thought that was quite an interesting story there, a bike related story, and the worlds of electro synth pop, which is one of my favourite music genres, and cycling coming together. It was quite exciting. Okay, finally this week, Trek have released a new bike, and I say just released. They released it about a month ago, I think. It kind of made the news, but it's called the Checkout. And why it interested me was I made a video or a podcast a couple of weeks ago about gravel bikes and do we need them, and the gravel bike / mountain bike conundrum that I was in. Now, the Trek Checkout it looks for all intents and purposes like a mountain bike. It is a full suspension gravel bike. Now, Trek have said that it's designed to be more capable and more comfortable off-road, so on the trail, whilst also being faster and more comfortable on the road than what a mountain bike would be, not as cumbersome. But it just does look like a mountain bike, and it's got drop bars on it. So I would love to give this bike a ride. I don't think there's any chance of me actually taking one of these for a spin. I'm going to see if I've got a local bike dealer who deals with Trek, and I might go and see if I can just borrow one and take one for a spin, because I'd love to see how it was out on the trails, you know, compared to my mountain bike. And it's quite exciting in a way, but to see a gravel bike, and I love the aesthetic lines of road bikes. You know, like I lust after a Pinarello. You know, I love the lines of these bikes. You know, the aero bikes, they look nice. And to see like a road bike with cumbersome front suspension forks, it just doesn't look right for me. It's got what's it got? It's got 60 mil of travel on the front and 55 mil of travel on the rear, and it's got 56 millimeters of tyre clearance. So proper mountain bike clearance on the tyres. Now, it's also got a dropper post, by the way, as well. Now, it starts at £4,500, so it ain't cheap, and it's got a carbon frame. So I don't know. Like I say, I would be interested to see how it rides, and in a way, I think for people who are into gravel biking, bike packing, that kind of thing, it's probably going to be a revelation, and maybe this is the way that bikes are going. This kind of hybrid, and maybe should stop thinking about bikes in terms of pigeonholing them into, to gravel, mountain bike, all the rest, road bike, and maybe just use it for the best tool, I guess, for the job, whatever that job is, whatever you want to do. So, and go and check it out on the Trek website. Right, so that's it for this week, guys. A quick one this week. Watch out for more news next week. Please like and subscribe the channel if you're enjoying the content. I'm going to be putting out another video around cycling throughout the winter, and training tips and gear tips, things like that. So watch out for that in the coming weeks, or the coming week. I should get that up this week. And other than that, guys, thanks for watching. That's me clipping out. Bye for now.